Thank you for coming and giving me a chance to talk to you. We rely sometimes a lot on letters to the editor, and those aren't always accurate, so it's an opportunity to kind of tell you a little bit about what I stand for and where I come from. I'm a firm believer in people's stories, because that's what makes them who they are. And if I was to introduce myself this evening fully, I'd have to tell you 20 stories. And most people that I talk to, council members, and that know that I can talk a long time. As long as 10 minutes. I was born in Okanogan County, but I was reminded that my parents didn't live in Okanogan County when I was born. They lived in Ferry County. So I'm not quite a native of Okanogan County, but I've lived in Okanogan County for 40 plus years of my life. I spent a few years, 4 years in the U.S. Coast Guard, so it was took me to the East Coast, Southern Oregon, and off the Strait of Juan de Fuca for a couple of years. So it gave me quite a little bit of experience in terms of both of my work and what I saw. Because like when I was in the Coast Guard, I did fisheries patrols up and down the Oregon and Washington coast. Got to see Russian and Japanese fishing fleets, pretty much taking a lot of the resources from 12 miles off the border in those days. And so I'm kind of familiar with what goes on with fisheries and those kind of things. I worked on ranches when I was a kid and growing up. Actually, I ran away from home when I was 16 years old and came back and joined the Coast Guard. And when I was in the Coast Guard, I got my degree, my high school diploma. Pursued more education while I was working in the woods, because after I got out of the Coast Guard, I was actually trained to be a machinery technician. I was a mechanic, and I worked for Crown's Auerback for a couple of years. Got tired of working graveyard, so I went out in the woods, and it was much more exciting. Got to work on the equipment that I ran, drove trucks on, but I did that for about 12 years. But while I was doing that, I had the GI Bill, so I went to school every chance I got. And I studied a lot of different things, because at Wenatchee Valley College North, there were a variety of things you could choose from, but not too many. So I took accounting, the basic mathematics, writing, those kind of things. I was always good at writing anyway, so it made it easy for me to enter the field that I'm in today, because I do a lot of writing. In fact, I think I write ordinances more than anything else these days, but not the funnest thing to do, but I enjoy that. But after working in the woods for a while, I got very curious, because there was a lot of battling going on in regards to timber harvests. And there was this issue with the spotted owl. And we didn't have any really spotted owls where I was at, but there was some big issues in terms of the timber industry, just in building. I mean, really, it was an up and down industry. And I really liked working on heavy equipment, that kind of stuff, but I also was very interested in what was going on in the forest and those kind of things. So I went and finished college. But I studied environmental studies. I went to Evergreen State College, which isn't very popular amongst some folks, because it's known as the most liberal college in the state. And I think you should thank me, though, because I went to college when I was 30-some years old, and there was a lot of young people learning things there that I got a chance to interact with them. That was the good thing. I got a chance to interact with kids that just got out of high school, and they lived in the city, and they were learning things that were very important. Science is important, but they also got a perspective from a few of us that were older and been around a little bit. In fact, I ran into a guy from Twist that I knew, and we were in the same program. We've both done logging and that kind of thing, and so we had a really good time, sharing our experiences with the kids in college. Did studied some tribal resource development. When I was in actually junior college, I took a year of accounting, so that helped me in terms of helping a couple people get through some business endeavors, that kind of thing. But after I got out of Evergreen State College and got a bachelor's degree, I began to get interested in planning work, and I worked for cities and towns in Okanogan County since '89. In fact, I showed up here in Oroville, and we wrote a grant for some improvements to Deep Bay Park, and probably did 2 or 3 other grants after that for the improvements of Deep Bay Park. And it kind of showed that if you do some good planning, it's a little easier to go and get the money you need to do the things you want to do. And so because I learned that kind of thing, over the years, I've been able to go and do economic development work where my heart is today, actually. I really like to create jobs, and I like to create diversity in the economy. That's one problem that we have in Okanogan County is if we put all our eggs in one basket, we tend to have an industry that goes down. When I was in the timber industry, that's what happened, and people were scrambling for jobs. I didn't find that too difficult for myself because I always felt it a challenge when I had to go out and find some other kind of work. It was exciting to do something different, and I knew I could do it. And so that's what I did for a long time. And I've lived around Okanogan County, all over it. Because I've worked for cities and towns, I've talked to a lot of people, and in my life I've talked to a lot of people. So I can talk to, I actually have a side job too. I take care of card locks, and there's one in Omac where a lot of different people go through there. And I can have conversations with them about what their situation is. And that's very important because today, when I look at the budget, there's these big numbers in it. And one of the big numbers goes to the Sheriff's Department. Safety is very important. One of the big numbers is in the jail. We're putting a lot of people in jail. Most recently, the jail was full. And that's a problem because when we put our own people into jail, interestingly enough, the only way we're able to keep the jail going is we have to rent space. And when we run out of rental space, we're in a difficult situation. I think an ex-commissioner here understands that quite well. He knows that game. And then, of course, if you take people from King County and they turn them out on the streets here, that's where they are, here. But I think those are problems that we really need to address on the other side as well, and I think a couple of the candidates talked about that, and that's some societal issues that we tend to push around the state. We have these problems all over around our country. And what we end up doing is pushing people down the road, and I joke with Todd Hill, our police chief, once in a while about, I think I saw that van full of druggies show up across the street at my place in Omac. And in fact, I think I do. I mean, we're moving them around. And so if you ever notice people in your neighborhood, if you live in town, you might notice people that you've never seen before. And they're walking around or riding bicycles around with backpacks and bags. And every time I get up in the morning, I see that happening. I see the mailboxes open on my street. And those kind of things are going on. And we can't just throw everybody in jail for it. We can't push people down the road because they're going to push them to us too. So we got some issues to deal with, and they include heroin addiction. And there's people that are watching drug houses in their neighborhoods, and it's so prevalent that the police can't move on them until it's the right situation. And people are frustrated about that. So we have to look at those kind of things in a different way than we ever have, I think. So as a county commissioner, what I'd really like to do is I think there's like 12, 13, 14 elected positions in Okanogan County. And they're all, I'm used to working for cities and towns. It's nonpartisan. They're all, it's partisan. Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. But really, working for cities and towns, you got people that work under the mayor and council. In this case, they're different offices. So you got to get those other offices together and join you in identifying clear objectives. And I think that's what we need to do. But when we do that, we need to take those objectives and make them clear to the public so that they know where we're going. And most recently, I see mistrust in government. It's really a big deal. I've been working around county government for 26 years, and it's worse than I've ever seen. And so that's a bad thing. And I can't really just say it's all the people's fault that are there. Part of it is an experiment. Because when you go to make change, you're doing an experiment. And so you have to be careful with your experiment and make sure the public knows what you're trying to do. And I think that's something that we need to do in Okanogan County. And having worked for cities and towns, I also have seen non-cooperation over many years with the cities and towns whose taxpayers are the same taxpayers. We elect the same officials. And so we should be treated the same as everybody else. We have some obligations to people out in the country, obviously. I've lived in both places. But we really need to work with cities and towns and be efficient. And I think through close government relations, a council of governments, I think is very good because we meet on a regular basis and talk about what our issues are. We talk about police issues. We talk about a good many issues. So I think that those are the key things to get things started. But one additional item being that we need to make jobs. And I really like to work in that field. I'm on the economic development, the work in tourism and those kind of things, and I think we've made some great successes. So thank you both.
Wow.
Good Lord.